Hi, this is Anthony, parent of IRSMedic, and tax reform in 2017 changed Form 5471 and not for the better. It made the form a little bit more complicated. And so in order to help out things, we have created our 2020 Form 5471 practice guide to help out people out there. Now, what we have here is a whole bunch of questions asked by real people. So we have some questions that are asked by some real professionals and some ones that people are sort of new to the form. So as we go through this, we're going to see some questions that are a little bit more advanced, and we're just trying to prove that there's really no stupid question with Form 5471. There are just so many complicated tricks to that. And so what we've done is we've broken this down into sort of some bite-sized chunks for you. Our first video, we're just going to be talking about what Form 5471 is generally, and then we're going to be talking about who has to file a Form 5471. Then we're going to talk about how to fill out and prepare a question for Form 5471, and then some where to file, and we'll talk about categories and schedules and some very specific questions people ask. And lastly, we're lastly going to talk about fees you should talk about. So with that, thank you very much. And with me is our lead international attorney, Robert Hanson of IRSMedic, parent. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for talking with me.
All right, so let's get into it because we have a lot of things to do. Our first topic is, what is Form 5471? Now, quickly, what would you just describe it as, Robert? What is Form 5471?
5471 is one of the handful of forms, part of the International Information Reporting Forms, kind of family or group, and it's for U.S. persons who are shareholders in foreign corporations to disclose their ownership of that foreign corporation.
So it's not for everybody that has to file. It's one of the most complicated forms we come across. So let's get to our first question. Our first question is Form 5471 based on U.S. sourced income or worldwide income?
Really not either. I mean, so it's definitely not based on U.S. income, and it's not even necessarily based on foreign income per se. You could have a foreign entity that doesn't generate income and still have a 5471 filing requirement.
That's a great point. That's right. Form 5471 actually might not have any tax due. There are some changes where there is now a tax return component, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, right. Do you know when the next question we have is, when was Form 5471 introduced?
Oh, this was back in the 60s.
Yeah, I think it was like 1960s at first. I actually tried to look into this and I couldn't quite tell, but it seems around 1960. Now, I think, you know what? When I saw that question, I did look at it. I saw that question, and I thought that was a pretty innocent question. But why would someone want to know that? And I think I know the answer. Because what if you didn't file one a few years ago? Well, right. I didn't file one. Well, maybe it was just introduced, so it's actually been around a really long time. But the other thing to be aware of, because I didn't see this question asked, was that if you don't file it, the IRS has forever to assess it. So even if you're missing one, an unfiled 5471 keeps your entire return open permanently. So it's really one of those things you want to make sure you get done correctly, because any tax year you have, however unlikely, could be open indefinitely without a correctly filed 5471 if one's required. So what's it used for? What would you say Form 5471 is used for, in addition to abusing taxpayers, which it kind of does, I would say?
It's, as I mentioned before, it's meant to, or used to, have people who own non-U.S. entities, basically the type of entities that the IRS normally doesn't have jurisdiction over. It's meant for the U.S. persons who are those shareholders to disclose that information and kind of give the IRS an idea of what your foreign holdings are that could potentially be generating income that they would want to tax.
Yeah, I think it's a potential of the income. That's what it's used for. The IRS can't, the IRS doesn't have physical jurisdiction over these entities, so they create these onerous reporting requirements because they can't be there in person. That's kind of the justification, I guess, for it. I don't think it's all that great. Our next question is, because there's just a one-digit difference here, what is Form 5471 and what is Form 5472? They're so close in numbers, right?
Right. 5472 is almost the mirror image of the 5471. The 5471 is for U.S. shareholders of foreign entities, and the 5472 is for domestic entities that are held more than 25% by non-U.S. persons, and that also might have some related party transactions and reportable transactions. It doesn't always get filed like a 5471 might be, but the penalties for the 5472 are much higher than the 5471.
Our next question is Form 5471 a standalone form?
It potentially can be, although oftentimes I don't often see people who have a 5471 filing requirement and then otherwise no other filing requirement. Only in those situations where maybe you have a foreign entity created to hold the family home or a vacation home that you're not really renting. That might be a situation.
What about a situation? You have a dormant 5471 and no income.
If you otherwise have a filing requirement and a dormant 5471, you might still have to do the filing requirement. Sometimes it might pay to be a little bit more conservative with this and file a 1040 with an attached 5471 if you're not sure.
But the general answer is no, it's not. It's not considered a standalone form. I don't think of it as a standalone, but it can be. I think there's situations where it can be.
Yes, and those situations I just don't run across. People who tend to have a foreign business tend to have something where they have a filing requirement.
All right, so I think that ends this first section of our 5471 guide. What is Form 5471? Now, what we are going to do is that we're going to do videos upcoming where we're going through it to make sure every question that people ask throughout our entire channel is answered. So if you have your 5471 question, get to it, and we'll get to that later. So please leave that in the comments below. This is Anthony Parent for Robert Hanson. Please join us in our next part where we'll be discussing who has to file a Form 5471. Thanks for watching.